Hey T-Squad, it's Kirsty. I want to talk about an interview I watched that honestly stuck with me not because of shock value, but because of how it was presented. Before anything else, this is not me stating facts and not me making accusations. This is me explaining what I watched, what was said, and why it stood out to me personally, especially if you haven't seen the interview yourself. The interview featured Bilaal, who describes himself as a former long-term associate of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. The conversation was long, intense, and very focused. This wasn't a quick clip or a soundbite, it was hours of one person explaining his side of a situation in detail. Throughout the interview, Bilaal made several serious accusations, and I think it's important to explain these clearly so people understand what I'm reacting to. First, he accused Will and Jada of sexual misconduct involving adults, saying there are recordings and witnesses that contradict public statements they've made in the past. He repeatedly framed these as allegations and tied them to what he claims are sworn legal filings. Second, he accused them of harassment and intimidation, alleging that after he spoke publicly, he was pressured through intermediaries, threatened, and offered money to retract statements. Third, he accused them of using legal power to silence him, claiming cease and desist letters were sent, lawyers overstepped authority, and subpoenas were avoided once court proceedings began. Finally, he suggested the situation escalated into serious personal danger, alleging surveillance, stalking, and an incident abroad that he believes was meant to intimidate or harm him. To be very clear, these are his accusations, as stated in the interview. I'm not confirming them, I'm explaining what he claimed. What stood out to me wasn't just what he was accusing them of, it was how he spoke. He wasn't emotional in the way you'd expect. He wasn't jumping between stories. He wasn't reacting to chat or chasing viral moments. He kept coming back to the same points, the same timeline, and the same documents. Over and over again, he emphasized that his statements were tied to court filings and said that if he lied in those filings, he could face jail time. As a viewer, that made me pause. People chasing attention usually exaggerate or dramatize. They don't keep reminding you of legal consequences. Another moment that stood out to me was his discussion of mutual NDAs, including references to Brasher Gray. He explained that mutual NDAs aren't common and suggested they're used when both sides want containment. Again, I'm not explaining why those NDAs existed. I'm explaining why that detail stood out to me as a viewer. Even if you don't believe him, the interview didn't feel messy. It felt controlled, repetitive in a deliberate way, focused on legal process rather than public opinion. It didn't feel like someone trying to win the internet. It felt like someone preparing for scrutiny. And that difference matters. I'm not here to decide who's telling the truth. I'm here because when someone makes accusations this serious and repeatedly invites court review instead of avoiding it, that alone is worth discussing. Not to believe blindly, not to dismiss automatically, but to actually pay attention so now you know who was speaking, what he accused them of, and why this interview stood out to me. The question isn't, do you believe him? The question is, why was this handled in such a deliberate, legal-focused way instead of brushed off? Let me know what you think in the comments, and as always, like and subscribe. Keep sipping that tea.